What's up, guys? It's Butts here with the Johto draft review. So we're just going to be going through all the different teams that were drafted in the Johto and giving them a sort of power ranking, giving my way too early picks for who's going to win it all this season. We've done it for the past couple seasons, so I'm just here to continue the trend. Okay, so we're going to be going through the teams. It's in alphabetical order. Nothing too special there. But let's just jump right into it. So we've got first the Bay Blue Lightning. Elk's been a coach for a long time in the GNDL, and excited to have him back in Johto after a brief stint in Hoenn last season. So Elk's team, we're starting off strong with Roaring Moon, Tabulele, Kartana, Goldengo, Cinderace, Witchcantera, Gyarados, Palmot, Iron Thorns, Shelgon, and Amora. So the first thing I like to look at is look at the types. So with the first three Pokemon, we got a really good Fairy Dragon Steel Core. Then a second Steel type with Goldengo. I think Kartana and Goldengo, they do overlap with the Steel type, but you got a million fire resists here. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. I actually think they're both great Pokemon, so I think having more good Pokemon is a good thing. So we've got, Cinderace with Terra I think is an amazing Pokemon, even though it does clash with Libero a little bit. But just in terms of having the ability to output offense, there's no lack of that with Kartana's 181 attack. Tabulele Psychic Terrain. Roaring Moon's got Photosynthesis and Incredible Attack. Goldengo, also incredible special attack. Cinderace is strong at Terrafire Pyro Ball. Nobody wants to mess with that. The speed tiers are also pretty good. The only thing is you're missing a Pokemon at base 100, which but you still got Tabulele at 95, so you're still forcing Timid Natures on base 100s. So I don't think it's a bad thing. So then moving on from overall strength of the team, which I think is pretty good, and type synergy, which does it lack no, you got a grass type, but the grass type doesn't resist ground. So this team actually is pretty weak to an earthquake. Yeah, Balloon, Goldengo, Gyarados pre-Mega doesn't get hit by it. I don't know. I'd say that's the first big hole I see in the team, is that it is very, very weak to ground types. So then let's look at hazards. So hazard-wise, we've got Kartana with Defog, Cinderace with Court Change, and then I think that's all the hazard removal options. Then for hazard setting, we've got Iron Thorns with Rocks and Spikes. I would have liked to see more hazards with the Goldengo, but I don't think it's bad, although I'm not certain Iron Thorn is going to come a lot. So this actually might just end up being an overall hazardless team unless Ace can change some hazards. So I don't think it's a bad option though, because Cinderace using Court Change is really strong. But it is also going to be the Terra Captain, so I don't know. It seems like it might be forced into more of a support role because of the lack of hazards and hazard removal. So it's the only removal is Cinderace, because you're usually not running Defog Kartana. So it's pretty much Cinderace is the only way of setting hazards and removing hazards, assuming Iron Thorns is there. So I don't love the hazards on this team, and I don't love the ground weakness. But overall, I feel like if it's played offensively, this team does have the tools to break anyone. Okay, moving on. So we got the Canalave Nightmares, Alakazam Mega, Sneasler, Garchomp, Rotom Wash, Diancie, Witchcantera, Dhelmise, Indeedee, Cutiefly, and Tinkaduff Witchcantera. So I was looking at this team earlier, and it's got a very strong, obviously, first four. Collectively, they're 36 plus 20, 56. Math is hard. 56, 66, 75 points in just the top four Pokemon. So that's means you got four really good Pokemon. You've obviously got the you don't have a Fairy Dragon Steel Core because you got a Dragon, you got a Fairy, and then Tinkaduff I don't really think would ever come with its awful base stats and it's got great typing and can hold Eviolite, so maybe it can do something. I'm just not really sold on it ever being a call. So I think this team, much like I was saying with the Bay Blue Lightning, has the same goal of like trying to overwhelm with offense, because you've got really strong offense. You got Alakazam, Mega, Sneasler, Garchomp, and Chi-Yu. Like, Chi-Yu is one of the best breakers ever. Alakazam Mega also extremely strong, and especially if you're pairing that with Indeedee and you can use Expanding Force, there's not much that can switch into it at all. Sneasler is a great late game cleaner. Garchomp can pretty much do everything. It can be a breaker, it can be a sweeper with Scale Shot, it can be a lead and set up hazards. Rotom Wash and Diancie, Dhelmise, I think these three make up an excellent defensive core, especially with Garchomp. I think those four Pokemon can provide the support needed to get Chi-Yu, Sneasler, and Alakazam on the right track. I think Indeedee is also a really good lower tier offensive mon that you can use, and especially with the support it provides for terrain for Sneasler and Psychic Terrain for Alakazam. It's really good, and honestly Chi-Yu doesn't love priority either. I think the team is pretty well constructed, outside of the fact that I think lacking a steel type might actually end up coming to bite it, just because of the defensive utility a steel type can give. And Diancie, actually I feel like it could tear steel a decent amount, because that then gets rid of its weakness to steel, obviously. But yeah. Hazards wise, you got Garchomp has both spikes and rocks, so does Diancie. Dhelmise has rapid spin, Rotom has defog. I think this team's pretty good hazards wise, because you got two people who can set both. You got I feel like Dhelmise is a really good rapid spinner. I used it a couple seasons ago, and then Rotom Wash is a really good defogger. So I think this team is well constructed, outside of the lack of a steel type, a real steel type. I know Ticketough's there, but yeah. Okay, so then we're on to the Cincinnati Cinderaces. So, we got Zamazenta Ground, Greninja, Venusaur Mega, Ceruledge, Haxorus, Screamtail, Vikavolt, Quagsire, Cincino, and Cryogonal. So, we've got a pretty good Fire, Water, Grass core here. Got a Steel, Dragon, and a Fairy type. So I like to see that. Speed tiers on the team look pretty good. You got 97 to force the speed boosting natures on base 100s. Got all these tiers 105 through 128, and then you even go down to 80. Maybe you'd like to see a little lower, a bit less of a gap between 80 and 43, but I don't think it's a big deal. I think this team, it's got some of the offensive stats it needs, like Ceruledge and Haxorus are really strong. Zamazenta's a Crown is also extremely strong, especially with body press. Yeah, and then defensively you got Greninja as a great late game cleaner. So like if you want to use Haxorus, can do both. It can break in the mid game and clean the late game. So can Ceruledge. And then Zamazenta Crown is always threatening with Iron Defense, or even with just like attacking sets with close combat. Maybe Trailblaze, maybe Howl, definitely Crunch probably. Heavy Slam too. Actually, I don't know if you run Behemoth Plash. I know you run Heavy Slam in VGC. I'm not super familiar with Zamazenta Crown's game, but I know it's really good. Defensively, yeah, Venusaur Mega, Screamtail, Quagsire makes up a great defensive core, actually. That's going to be really tough to break. Screamtail can pass wishes. Venusaur Mega obviously just is really bulky, has the thick fat to get rid of its fire and ice weaknesses. Then you also got, yeah, Quagsire has the Unaware or Water Absorb, both great abilities. I think this team is pretty well tooled defensively and offensively. Yeah, and I think Haxorus the Terra Captain is really good. If you want to, you can just like run Terra Dragon Outrage to get the maximum damage off this base 147 attack stat, or you can run like a more specific Terra if you want to do like a Dragon Dance set so you can hit something you wouldn't normally be able to. I think it's really cool, and I'm a pretty big fan. So hazards wise, we've got Greninja has spikes, Screamtail has rocks, Vikavolt has webs, Quagsire has rocks and spikes. Removal, Vikavolt, I'm pretty sure gets defog. Good check that. Vikavolt does not get defog, I lied. So hazard removal wise, Caragonal gets spin. I think it's just that. Oh, tidy up on Cincino too. So I don't love the hazard removal, especially because Venusaur Mega and Zamazenta Crown can't hold heavy duty boots, and so that's gonna make them more weak to spikes. And yeah, so I just don't love that. Plus, if you want to run like an offensive item on Greninja, Ceruledge, Edge, or Haxorus, then they're way more weak to rocks and spikes. So I don't love the hazard control. I do like the hazard setting with Greninja, Screamtail, Quagsire, and Vikavolt, but I don't know. I think it's a pretty good team. Next up, we have the Dallas Staryu. Okay, so we got Urshifu, Slowking, Galar, and Namorous, Napoleon, Hydrapple, which can both Terra, Donphan, Manectric Mega, Pythagoras, Cetitan, Archeops, and Golbat. Alright, so let's start at the top. I think Urshifu is an amazing Pokemon. I think it's one of the best, it's one of the best breakers in the format, and I think it could be a really good sweeper with like Swords Dance plus Sucker Punch, or even Trailblaze if you want to use that. Slowking Galar, probably the best defensive Pokemon. It's an amazing pivot with like Chilly Reception. Plus it can get every move in the world. It can set Toxic Spikes, it's got Regenerator, it can use Future Sight, Thunderwave, Toxic, pretty much everything you could ever ask for. And it absorbs Toxic Spikes too. It's really good. Yeah, Namorous is a really strong special attacker. I think these top three are like what makes the team. I think it's an incredible top three Pokemon. I think Empoleon and Hydrapple are pretty good Terra Captains because they can be used defensively or offensively. Like Empoleon can run agility, power trip sets, and whatnot. With competitive, I guess now that it's competitive, maybe you'd run a special set with agility. And a Hydrapple, I think, was the Kanto Flight's winning team's Terra Captain last season. I think it's great. I think Hydrapple is, like with Regenerator and then the ability to change into a better defensive type, I think it's like really hard to break. I think with the double Regenerator core with Hydrapple and Slowking, there's going to be a really tough team to beat defensively. Typing wise, so you got Fairy, a Steel, and a Dragon right here. I don't see a Fire type. Yeah, there's no Fire type on the team. Not the biggest deal ever. Yeah. I think this team has the strength it needs though, with a Namorous and Urshifu. And then like if you really need strength, you can go down and use Archeops. It looks like it's gonna play a little more defensively, just trying to get Urshifu and a Namorous in to do the damage, and then switch out to one of your super bulky Pokemon, or into your pivot and Mega Manectric, and then try to get him back in. Speed tier wise, a little on the slower side, but I don't dislike it. Yeah, you got pretty much every speed tier filled up. Got the 97 to 106 to 110 to 135, and then down from that 90. I guess you have a gap from 90 to 73, but that's not even like a bad gap at all. I think the speed tiers are good. Yeah, I don't really even see any big weaknesses with this team. I really like it. Hazard wise, you got Donphan with rocks, Empoleon with rocks, Slowking has Toxic Spikes, Pythagoras has Toxic Spikes, Archeops has rocks, and then hazard removal wise, you got Donphan with spin, Empoleon has defog, Archeops I think has defog, and Golbat definitely has defog. So yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any spikes on this team, but I don't necessarily think you need it. I think if you can get rocks up every game, and then just force switches with Urshifu and Namorous, and even Manectric too, I think this is going to be a great team. Okay, so next up we got the Dayton Dragonites, starting off with Dragapult and Mega Scizor, two of the stronger Dragfleet Pokemon in my opinion. Looks like Rotom Heat already has a kill, so I have to figure out why that is. I think this was a problem last season, and then we used the same sheet from last season. So I'll fix this up at some point. So we got Primarina, Makalola, Rotom Heat, Sandy Shocks, Iron Jugulus, Tauros, Bronzong, Whirlipede. So right off the bat, you see you got the Steel Fairy Dragon Core. You've got, not seeing a, oh, you know what? Is there a grass type on this team? Yeah, it's Hydrapple. There's a water, a fire, but I don't see a grass type on the team. Yeah. So in turn, but you do have Rotom, which is immune to ground. And Jugulus is also immune to ground, but if it tears, but like Moldbreak or Earthquake from Haxorus or from Excadrill looks pretty good into this team. Alright, but that's kind of besides the point. So Dragapult, obviously the best Pokemon to draft. Super fast. You can use both attacking stats. Can be honestly defensive if you want. It's really can do everything. Scizor Mega, a great Pokemon for breaking or sweeping. Really strong physically. Can do awesome curse sets. Can do Sword Stance. Can do, I don't know, you got Quick Attack, Bullet Punch, Bug Bite, Close Combat, Knockoff, U-Turn. Pretty much every move it could ever ask for. Prim, Muck, and Rotom are all really good defensive Pokemon. Like Primarina and Rotom can both pivot with Volt Switch and Flip Turn respectively. Sandy Shocks, Iron Jugulus, Tauros Pedayagua can be like offensive or defensive. Sandy Shocks and Jugulus are more offensive. Bronzong's a good Rock Setter and defensive Pokemon. Whirlipede is probably never coming because I don't think Baton Pass is allowed. So I'd say overall, I'd be a little worried about the offensive out. I guess with Terra Iron Jugulus, along with Scizor, Dragapult, and maybe Rotom, the offensive output might be a little weak. I think it's going to be mainly carried by Dragapult and Scizor. So hopefully, I guess not hopefully, I'm not really rooting for any specific team, but I think for this team to be successful, Dragapult and Scizor are going to have to step up and carry most of the team. Hazards wise, so we've got Defog Scizor, Defog Rotom, I think that's it. And then setting, you've got Shock sets both, Bronzong sets Rocks, and I think that's it, because I know Whirlipede gets Spikes and Toxic Spikes, so I guess that could come. But I don't know if, does Muck get any of that? Muck. I can't spell Muck. It does not get Toxic Spikes. So yeah, I think the hazard setting is a little on the weaker side, as you have to bring either Sandy Shocks just as a hazard setter, or you have to bring Bronzong, which like isn't a bad thing, but I don't think Bronzong is like a thing you want to bring every single week. So yeah, actually that's another Earthquake immunity that also gets beat by Excadrill. So yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say it's the greatest team ever, but I don't think it's like unusable. So next up we got the Glass Cannons, Cocoa Bundle, Gliscor, Terapagos, Raging Bolt, Iron Leaves, Typhlosion, Orthworm, Gliscod, and Mabosstiff. I really like this team. I like it a lot. You got Iron Bundle and Type of Cocoa for the synergy right there. Gliscor, which never dies. Iron Leaves can also use the electric terrain, but with Terra, I mean, like, it can do whatever it wants. Typhlosion Hisui, I think is really strong, especially with Terra. Raging Bolt, I think is amazing. It's like one of the best OU Pokemon right now, and I think it's also really good in draft. Yeah, typing wise, you got a Fairy type here, a Dragon type here. Steel type with Orthworm, which I'm a pretty big Orthworm fan. I think Earth Eater is really awesome, because then you're only weak to fighting and fire. And plus you can set up both Rocks and Spikes, which is really nice. Terapagos, really cool. It's a good spinner. Pretty much has every coverage in the game, and can set up with Calm Mind and Agility. I think it's actually Rock Polish, not Agility. That really doesn't matter though. Speed tiers look pretty good. No real gaps. I guess there's a gap from like 104 to 130, which, I mean, what? I guess base 120 Pokemon can run Adamant on you, or Modest or whatever. but I don't think it's like a huge deal. I do like the electric offense with Raging Bolt and Tapu Koko, and then Iron Bundle can take out the grounds. So I think offensively, this team actually, there's literally nothing that I could improve on. Tapu Koko, Iron Bundle, Terapagos, Raging Bolt, Iron Leaves, Typhlosion, even Galizapod is like kind of cool occasionally to first impression people. Mabalstiff has Stakeout, although I don't really see Gliscor and Mabalstiff coming too often. Hazards wise, you got Defog Gliscor, Defog Koko, Spin on Terapagos. I think that's it, but luckily those are on 3 of the top Pokemon, which makes it more likely that you'll have them each week. And then for Setting Rocks, you got Spikes and Rocks on Gliscor, Spikes and Rocks on Orthworm. I think that's it, but I think that's more than enough. Like, because you're likely bringing Gliscor to almost every match. And Orthworm, I think, has the ability to come to a lot of different matches. I think you can always have the Rocks and Spikes pressure. And then with Tapu Koko, Iron Bundle, and Raging Bolt, and Terapagos, all forcing switches, and honestly, Iron Leaves and Typhlosion, I think Hazards would go a long way if you can set them up with Gliscor. I think this team's great. Okay, so we've got the Goblin Form Marshadows with Iron Valiant, Tinglu, Aerodactyl, Terra, Archaladon, Vaporeon, Moltres, Dudunsparce, Terra, Slowbro, Galar, Bellibolt, and Bramblegast. So this team has Iron Valiant, which makes it good in general. There was a team a couple seasons ago that had the Iron Valiant, Tinglu, Aerodactyl core going. So that's kind of amusing to see it again. What else? So Tinglu, Aerodactyl. You got some nice hazards here is the first thing I'm seeing. Tinglu, Aerodactyl sets rocks, Tinglu sets both. Bramblegast sets spikes, which I think Bramblegast is a very bringable Pokemon. I think it's a really good ghost type. You can block spin if you set up all your hazards with Tinglu. In terms of hazard removal, I think Aerodactyl gets defog, but you wouldn't really use that. Moltres I know gets defog. Bramblegast gets spin, so I don't think it's bad at all. I think that's pretty good hazard removal. You've got, in terms of offensive output, you've pretty much got Valiant, you got Aerodactyl, and you got Archaladon, which I don't think are 3 bad offensive Pokemon. And I guess Moltres can be offensive, but yeah, I mean Moltres, sure. You might have to use that a little more offensively. But because then you got Vaporeon, Dudunsparce, Slowbro, and Tinglu, which I'd see as more defensive Pokemon for all them. Yeah, Bellibolt, Bramblegast, Slowbro. I don't know if I already said Slowbro. I'd see all them as more defensive, but Bramblegast can actually do some pretty good damage with Poltergeist, Power Whip, and stuff. Especially if you get a Wind Rider boost, yeah. Then we got, what else? I think Iron Valiant is always a great Pokemon. I think its ability to clean late game is insane. Aerodactyl Mega has Dragon Dance now and Dual Wing Beat, which are huge buffs since it's left the game. I think Terra Archaladon is the best Terra Captain that was allowed in this league, and because of that, I think that gives you I think this team is really good. Like having Terra Archaladon gives you like an inherent advantage. But yeah, your Dragon and your Steel are in the same Pokemon, so you kind of have a Fairy Dragon Steel core, but kind of don't. I've heard some Draft League YouTubers say they don't like having the Fairy or not the Fairy, but I have heard the Fairy and the Steel or the Dragon and the Steel being the same Pokemon is not something they like, but I don't. I think it's good. I think Archaladon is really cool, and I think having him as a Terra Captain is the best possible option. And I think the defensive core is solid. I think the offensive core might come up lacking a little bit, but I think it's also possible that Terra, Archaladon, and Iron Valiant can just carry the team, assuming Aerodactyl hits all its moves. Okay, so now I've got the Kanto All-Star, cool team that I think I saw it was made up of I know it's made up of just Kanto Pokemon, plus it seems Arcanine Hisui. You've got the 2 dragons here at the top, Charizard and Dragonite, which I'm a really big Mega Charizard X fan, but you kind of have some super overlap here between Charizard and Dragonite. I guess you could just try to have 2 Dragon Dance sweepers, and surely they can't stop both of them. But I do think it's cool because having Charizard X maybe frees up your Dragonite to run Ice. It doesn't. If Dragonite's just your breaker, then if you want to run like Dragon Dance plus Ice Beam or something to like break a Gliscor that would otherwise wall both Charizard and Dragonite, I think that'd be cool. Then you got like Arcanine and Gengar, obviously really good offensive pieces. Venusaur without the Sun isn't super offensive, but Alakazam's a really good offensive piece. So is Starmie, especially Starmie with Terra. I think this team it does look really good. I think defensively, Nidoqueen, Venusaur, Blastoise, also Starmie, and Weezing. They're like kind of all poison type, but pretty much everyone's weak to Psychic on this team. I don't think there's no Dark type on this team because it's all Kanto Pokemon. Yeah, this team is exceedingly weak to Psychic. Like Starmie's a resist, but your Spadef's 80, HP's 60. Yeah, I don't think this team is going to do very well into a Psychic type. But anyway, I think for hazard-wise, Nidoqueen has Stealth Rocks, Blastoise has Spin, Venusaur has Toxic Spikes, Weezing has Toxic Spikes. I don't think the hazards are... Onix gets Stealth Rock at least. Arcanine gets Stealth Rock, so you got a decent amount of Rock setters, no Spike setters. Yeah, I don't really like the team too well. I think it's fine. I don't think it's bad. Like, you got a ground type, obviously you can stop Volt Switches. You've got a spinner, so you're not going to be super weak to hazards. You also got Starmie that spins. And you're able to set up Toxic Spikes and Stealth Rocks with a multitude of different Pokemon, because Gengar also gets Toxic Spikes. I honestly think it's just going to come down to how well this team can break the other team with hazards up. I think having like Stealth Rocks up with Arcanine and then just getting Stealth Rocks up with one of these Pokemon and then using like Life Orb Nidoqueen or Arcanine Hisui with Choice Band, or like Alakazam with Life Orb, because Life Orb Nidoqueen and Life Orb Alakazam both don't take Life Orb damage if Nidoqueen's Sheer Force and Alakazam's Magic Guard. I think that should be the goal. To break the teams and then let Charizard or Dragonite sweep. So actually, now that I think about this more, I think it's kind of a cool team. I really like Mega Charizard X. So, yeah. I don't have a whole lot else to say. Speed tiers are actually pretty good, all things considered. It's got like 60 through 120 all covered pretty much every 5 to 10 points. So yeah, I think the team's pretty good. I didn't at first, but now it's grown on me. Okay, so getting closer to the end. We're on to Mark's Mania. And got Blaziken, Landorus, Zapdos, Kingambit, Amoonguss, Hatterene, Regieleki, Minior, Lurantis, Rabsca, and Lilligant. So with Rabsca, anybody can come back. So there's that. I don't see a Terra Captain on this team. I think that's right. I don't think there was a Terra Captain on this team. So yeah, I think Blaziken is... I'm not the biggest Blaziken fan, but I know that it does have the potential to be really good, like with Swords Dance plus Speed Boost. Landorus, I think I am the biggest Landorus fan. It's amazingly strong with Sheer Force, like Life Orb Earth Power. No one can switch in. Zapdos is awesome offensively and defensively. Kingambit, the ultimate never give up Pokemon. Amoonguss and Hatterene are really good defensively. Regieleki, great for speed control, because you're faster than pretty much everything at +1. Like everything else, when it is at +1, is slower than Regieleki when it's at neutral. Minior is a cool, like, Shell Smash Sweeper. Lurantis has Contrary, Rabsca brings things back, and Lilligant I don't really see coming. Unless it's a Sun matchup, I guess. In which case you can go fast and fire off Sleep Powders and Quiver Dance and stuff. Yeah. So what do I think about the team overall? Well, you got a Steel type, a Fairy type, and no Dragon type that I can see. So we miss out on the Fairy Dragon Steel. We've got a Fire type, a grass type, and no water type. So we miss out on the grass, fire, water. For defog, we have Landorus, Zapdos. Alecki has Spin. I think that's it. But you also have Hatterene, so like, if you play it well enough, you'll never have Hazards up anyway. Which I think is good. I think having Hatterene plus like Zapdos can free Zapdos up to run like not heavy duty boots. You can have it run like specs or leftovers or whatever based on your matchup. I think Rocky Helmet would be cool too, because you got the static, and then if you pair static with the Rocky Helmet, yeah. Yeah, I don't love not having a water type though, and not having a dragon type, because dragon type's usually pretty. It has all the resistances to fire, water, grass, electric, which are usually pretty useful, and then not having a water type, you miss out on just having 2 weaknesses, which is usually pretty good. In terms of hazard setting, can Gambit, Landorus both get rocks, but neither really loves running it. I think that's it. Maybe Minior gets rocks. Let's look. It does get rocks, so I guess you can run rocks Minior. But I don't know. I don't think Minior wants to run rocks either, because it usually likes to be Shell Smash. I don't think the hazard setting on this team is great, except bouncing stuff back with Hatterene. So there's that. I think Hatterene Magic Bounce is really a highlight of this team, and I think offensively, King Gambit, Landorus, and Blaziken can beat almost anything. I think the low tiers are actually pretty good, because like Minior and Lurantis both can be offensively cool if you like bring them, and then Rabska being able to bring things back is Revival Blessing, I assume, is allowed. I actually have no idea. Yeah, Revival Blessing is allowed. So yeah, Revival Blessing being able to bring things back is cool. I think the low tiers were like the points were well used. I think Regieleki is good. I think the speed tiers do leave a little to be desired, because like the 101 to 200 jump is a little much. But you do have Blaziken with speed boost, so it's not too bad. Yeah. I don't have a ton to say about this team. I think using Hatterene to stop hazards is a good idea, and then pairing it with like 4 super strong Pokemon right here, I think it could work out. Alright, so on to Milwaukee Mudkip and Luki. So we've got Darkrai, Terra, Melmetal, Clefable, Kamamo with no dash. I guess that's just the way it is. Azelf, Alomomola, Talonflame, Toedscool, Rotom Frost, Muck, and Perugly. Let's start off. We've got Fairy Dragon Steel right here. Fire, Water, Grass right here. Regenerator Aloe, which is awesome. And yeah, with the wishes you can pass to Melmetal, which I think will work out really well if that's the route he chooses to go. Darkrai is really good. Obviously, sleep is not banned here, so you can hypnosis people, or you can just nasty plot, or be scarfed, or be specs, or whatever. I've just got that high 135 special attack. Melmetal I think is really an awesome Terra Pokemon, especially if you just like Terra Steel, double iron bashing things. Then he has the Alomomola, so there's literally nothing to switch into it. You got Clef and Kamamo, so Clef is good offensively and defensively. It's a really good support Pokemon. It's got Teleport in that dex. And Rocks. Yeah, I really like this top part of the team. I think Melmetal's a really strong breaker. Darkrai is too. Clef's great defensively. Kamamo can do literally everything. It can be defensive, have Stealth Rocks, it can be set up with Iron Defense Body Press, it can be set up with Clangorous Soul, set up with Belly Drum, set up with Dragon Dance, Swords Dance, with Scale Shot. It's amazing. Yeah. Azelf is a great hazard setter and can also be offensive. Aloe, really good pivot. Talonflame, has Flame Body, defogs, boots. Toedscool can rapid spin and set spikes, and Spore. And Spore goes through Magic Bounce. Yeah, this thing can set through Magic Bounce, which is really cool. Rotom Frost, Muck, and Perugly. Yeah, I mean, they're whatever. Rotom Frost I feel like is bringable. Muck is too, because it's got pretty good defensive stuff. Well, that's its offense right there. But special defense 100, HP 105, defense 75. And then also being able to like spread poison, set toxic spikes is good. Probably I don't really foresee coming. Yeah. So hazard wise, we got rocks on Clefable, Commo, Azelf, spikes on Toadscruel, toxic spikes on Muck. I think it's pretty good hazard setting wise. Then you got Defog on Talonflame, Toadscruel has Rapid Spin, Defog on Rotom. So like, not the top tier hazard removal, but also at the same time, Clef doesn't get hit by hazards. Mola usually wants to run boots anyway. Darkrai, you could run boots on it too. Combo again, you could run boots. You could realistically take no hazard damage if you just want to accept the 6% on Metal. You could just never remove hazards and run a bunch of heavy duty boots plus Clef with Magic Guard. So yeah, I actually don't hate the hazard game on this one at all. Yeah. I think it's a really strong team. It's got the offenses needed. Speed tiers are pretty good. And yeah, not much to say besides I think this team is also one of the best in the league. So then we've got Nashville Soundwave, Tony, the founder of the Draft League. So we got Palafin, Meowscarada, Togekiss, Skeledirge, Conkeldurr, Clodsire, Swellow, Cyclizar, Magneton, and Espeon. Got a Fire Water Grass core right here. Fairy, Dragon Steel. So like, I guess the Clodsire and Magneton are real. So I like having Palafin as your top Pokemon. I think it's really good. I wasn't able to use it effectively last season, but I still think it's really good. I think Meowscarada is really good support for that, being fast and also physically attacking. But then honestly, offensively, I don't love anything else. I think Skeledirge is really cool at what it does of like torch songing and getting strong, but like it's not immediately threatening. Conkeldurr is immediately threatening, but it's really slow, which is unfortunate. So usually you can't like sweep through a whole team with Conkeldurr. Swellow is kind of threatening with like Choice Specs, Boom Burst, or you could even do like Guts Brave Bird or Guts Facade, which is stronger. But I don't. Yeah, I think like you go Palafin and Meowscarada in terms of like really scary offensive threats. Togekiss, it's like got 120 special attack, but I usually see it more as a cheese Pokemon than as like a scary offensive threat. But it does get nasty plots, so like this problem is just the 80 speed, so it gets outsped by a decent amount of stuff. Skeledirge, again, like I said, it can build up to being offensive. But defensive-wise, like Skeledirge, Clodsire, you got the Unaware duo, and Togekiss I think is really good defensively just from the Fairy Flying typing. Conkeldurr can also be really cool defensively, just because it does have such a high HP stat and pretty good defense. Cyclizar has Regenerator, which makes it pretty good utility-wise. It's like knockoff U-turn, Rapid Spin. Magneton, like, I guess you're removing steals for Meowscarada. I don't know. I don't know if Magneton, I guess type-wise it makes a decent amount of sense, but I guess I'd pair Magneton with, pairing Magneton with Meowscarada actually makes sense. Because Meowscarada gets pretty well walled by steel types, so does Togekiss, and then if you get Magneton in to get rid of those steel types, you're good. Espeon, I think I said earlier how much I like Magic Bounce. I really like Espeon too. I think having Magic Bounce is the best option for hazards, because that way you can just, instead of having to worry about like Rapid Spinning with Cyclizar, or defogging with Swellow, or defogging with Togekiss, or defogging with Conkeldurr actually. He's got a lot of defog. So actually, yeah, the hazard removal game is really strong here. Plus, Espeon to Magic Bounce him back. I think that's an extreme strength of this team, is the hazard removal. Then you got, let's see. So hazard-wise, you have Clodsire with spikes and Stealth Rocks. Meowscarada has spikes. I think that's it. So like not the strongest, but you don't really need anyone but Clodsire. Clodsire can usually set at least one hazard every game, just because of how bulky and good it is. And Meowscarada does get spikes and T-spikes, so like, if you want to go that route, you can. If you want to go offensive, you can. Meowscarada just being unpredictable is a good thing. Yeah. Trying to think of other things to say about this team. Speed tier wise, it's pretty good. I think the only like thing to look at is like the gap between 100 and 80, but I don't really think that's a big deal at all, as I think I've said in this video. I think as long as you don't have like a 100 to 200 speed gap is a little worrying. But I mean, at least in 100 to 200 you have something faster than everybody. But alright, I'm kind of getting off topic. Yeah, I mean, like grounded poison and a ground type, so you don't get volt switched on, or toxic spike on. I think the only thing that, like, defensively, yeah, Togekiss, Clodsire, Skeldridge. I think the only thing to maybe hold this team back is that really the only like super strong offensive Pokemon is Palafin, whose attack is actually 160 once you get out of the normal form. And Conkeldurr is really strong, but like has a lot of trouble actually getting in and doing damage. So I don't think it's a bad team, but probably not number one in the power rankings. Okay, so we got the Sydney Skarmories. Last team, Tornadus, Therian, Spectre, Iron Treads, Terra Keldeo, Altaria, Mega, Terra Entei, Qwilfish, Hisui, Electros, Duraludon, and Eldegoss. So I think what I like about this team, firstly, is that like every single Pokemon can be brought. I think Duraludon and Eldegoss and Electros and Qwilfish, I think all these are viable. Other than that, I think Tornadus is like one of the, it obviously has the best ability in Draft and Regenerator. You got Spectre, which is a really good Pokemon, especially now as Draining Kiss to break Dark types. I think Spectre is like, it used to be my profile picture. I really like Spectre, and I think it's really good. Iron Treads and Keldeo. I think Keldeo's Terra is really good because it gets access to Terra Blast is a big thing. So does Entei. I think Entei is also a really good Terra because you can use Terra Extreme Speed on Entei. Keldeo, you could honestly just Terra Water and then just start tearing through things, or Terra Fighting with like Focus Blast, or Secret Sword if you don't want to miss. I think Altaria Mega is really cool. You got Dragon Dance sets, you also have special sets, you can also be defensive, you can really do whatever you want with it. Treads is a really good spinner defensively. So like offensively, you've got Torn who can go offensive or defensive. You got Spectre who's a great offensive Pokemon. Keldeo's great. Entei's great offensive. Iron Treads and Altaria both can be offensive and can be great at that. They don't have to be. So I think Entei, Keldeo, and Spectre, it's again, I think I've said this about a couple teams. It's like, that's a really good 3 offensive Pokemon right there, but you might need more than 3. So like, I guess if Torn also goes offensive, then you've got 4 really good offensive Pokemon, and you've also got Altaria. So I like the offense on this team. Defensively, you can use like Torn, Iron Treads, Altaria, Qwilfish, Electros, Duraludon with Eviolite, and Eldegoss. I feel like all these guys are pretty good defensively, even against like higher tier Pokemon. I think Tornadus, especially with Regenerator and Iron Treads, I think this is pretty solid offensively and defensively. You've got Steel type, Fairy, and Dragon type here. So you got all those. You've got a Water type, Fire type. No grass type. Oh no, here's a grass type. Yeah, and it's an Earthquake resist because yeah, you're all good with this. You got Electros with no weaknesses, which is cool. A Volt Switch immunity, a grounded poison type. Alright, hazards wise, you got Defog on Torn, Spin on Treads, Defog on Altaria. I think that's it, but that's 3 pretty good Pokemon that can take away hazards. And Treads has Stealth Rocks, Qwilfish has Spikes and T-Spikes, Duraludon's got Rocks. So like, not the greatest hazard setting, but not bad at all. Overall, I think this team's pretty good. I think just having Tornadus and Spectre makes your team better, and I think Iron Treads is really good too. I also really like Terra Keldeo. I like Altaria. I just like this team a lot. Okay, so with all that being said, let's go back through these. Not like the whole thing, but I think it's between the Dallas Staryu and not the Goblin Force and the Milwaukee Mudkip for the best team. I'd give the edge. I actually might give the edge to the Milwaukee Mudkip because I feel like that it's a more versatile team with Clef and Kamalo and Azelf can all do a lot of different things. But I think in second would be the Dallas Staryu, and then my third best team would be the Sydney Skarmories. And yeah, so that's that on draft review.